page is 221 of CWSA.
CWSA.
But
SABCL is 211, 211.
Yes, that's right. 211 is correct. 221 is for CWSA. So, Archana ji, can you start reading?
Yes, sure.
Okay, go ahead.
What is the condition of the predominantly sattvic nature freedom, and is this will in man a free will? That the Gita, from the standpoint of a higher consciousness in which alone is true freedom, denies. The buddhi or conscious intelligent will is still an instrument of nature, and when it acts, even in the most sattvic sense, it is still nature which acts and the soul which is carried on the wheel by Maya. At any rate, at least 9/10 of a freedom of will is a palpable fiction. That will is created and determined not by its own self-existent action at a given moment, but by our past, our heredity, our training, our environment, the whole tremendous complex thing we call karma, which is behind us, the whole past action of nature on us, and the world converging in the individual, determining what his will shall be at a given moment, and determining as far as analysis can see, even its action at that. The ego associates itself always with its karma, and it says, I did, and I will, and I suffer. But if it looks at itself and sees how it was made, it is obliged to say of man, as of the animal, nature did this in me, nature wills in me, and if it qualifies by saying my nature, that only means nature as self-determined in this individual creature. It was the strong perception of this aspect of existence which compelled the Buddhists to declare that all is karma and that there is no self in existence, that the idea of self is only a delusion of the ego mind. When the ego thinks, I choose and will this virtuous and not that evil action, it is simply associating itself somewhat like the fly on the wheel, or rather as might a cog or other part of a mechanism if it were conscious, with a predominant wave or a formed current, the sattvic principle by which nature chooses through the buddhi one type of action in preference to another. Nature forms itself in us and wills in us, the Sankhya would say, for the pleasure of the inactive, observing Purusha.
Okay, so this is a paragraph is explaining how there is no real freedom when you are identified with your body-mind life. When you are not identified with your body-mind life, and the soul comes out, your soul consciousness, and goes out of the body-mind life, and your consciousness is stationed above in the higher mind, at least. The higher mind is the lowest of the second level, and then you are free. Okay? You are free, but there is no power to do anything. That's the funny part, okay? Mostly. Okay? So we'll read this carefully and see what he said. So, earlier he has discussed the determinism of nature in plant. Plant is absolutely obeying only nature. If nature gives it water, it takes it. If nature gives it air and light, it takes it. Okay? It is absolutely no will of its own in the plant. In the animal also, it is completely nature which operates. It's like a machine. A machine which a man operates has no will of its own. It does exactly what it is told to do. Okay? So, that is what he is saying here. Now the question arises, but when mind comes in, don't you feel that there is a little bit of freedom? Okay? I like to give the example of this. I say, who said there is no freedom? Okay? I am not thirsty now at all. If I am thirsty and I go and drink water, it can be told to me that nature is forcing you to drink water by making you thirsty. It can say that, because thirst is a part of your body requirement. But to deny freedom, I give this example, okay, that look, I am not thirsty now at all. But just to prove my freedom and my will is my own and not anybody else's, I will go and drink a glass of water. And I am doing this only by my own will. Who can say that I am being forced? This is the example I have to give. But the answer to that is that even that will of yours is manipulated and forced on you by nature. Okay? So, but Swamya is hinting here that when mind comes in, about 10%, okay, there is that freedom. As I said, I have the free will not to drink water or to drink water. Even when I am thirsty and nature is forcing me to drink water, I will say, I will not drink water to prove that I have my own will. Okay? So, to that extent, there is 10% chance of being free in that sense when the mind starts operating. Okay? So, this is what is being said, and we'll read the paragraph. So, the question is, when you are in the mind and you have a will which you think you can use, your free will, which you seem to be doing all the time. I have a desire, but I deny the desire. I am doing that by my own free will. If I obey my desire, then you can say that you are being forced by nature. Okay? Nature is giving you desire and now you are like a slave, you have to satisfy your desire. But to prove to you that I am not a slave to nature, I will not succumb to my desire. Now, that is a 10% of freedom that we spoke about. Okay, sir. And it is that freedom which is used to escape the determinism of nature. The more you control yourself and the more you deny the mechanism of the body, then you start becoming free. The knots become looser and slowly the knots are untied absolutely and you can become free. So, I now start reading the text with this background. But is the condition of the predominantly sattvic nature freedom? And is this will in man a free will? That the Gita, from the standpoint of a higher consciousness, in which alone is true freedom, denies. The Gita says, sorry, there is no freedom at all, even when you are in a mental being. Okay? But it is saying that from the higher standpoint, from the higher consciousness. When you are in the higher consciousness, in which you use the word alone, in the higher consciousness in which alone is true, freedom denies. The Gita denies the freedom, even when you are in a sattvic nature. Now, the next sentence. I remember very clearly when somebody asks Ramana Maharshi, that are we really, is a Westerner who asks him, is it true that we don't have any will at all and that we are a slave to nature? There is no freedom at all? So Ramana Maharshi says, yes, that is absolutely true. Okay. So the Gita is saying the same thing here. Okay. I read the next sentence. The buddhi or conscious intelligent will is still an instrument of nature, and when it acts, even in the most sattvic sense, it is still nature which acts and the soul which is carried on the wheel of Maya. Now, there is a very interesting thing and we'll discuss it a little bit. So, buddhi or conscious intelligent will is an instrument of nature. In other words, I always speak of three levels. Level 1, level 2, level 3. Level 1 consists of your body, your life and your mind. So long as you are in your body-mind life, there is no freedom for you. You are in ignorance. And you have got all sorts of delusions about your freedom. Now, this is very interesting. Modern science has proved that even your thinking, what you think, is really a mechanism. This is what artificial intelligence is telling you clearly. Man has been able to create a machine which thinks for you. Okay? And you feel that, the machine is thinking. Not at all. The machine is only accessing knowledge which is already pumped into it. Okay? The internet is being charged with all sorts of information, false and correct both. So the artificial intelligence is doing nothing but gathering all this information in 1 second. Man will take a long time to gather the information. Sometimes we don't remember. I remember when I'm wanting a reference, I have to consult the books. But a computer is able to do that immediately because all the neurons in the brain are replicated in the computer by chips. So, artificial intelligence is nothing but a machine, and it is thinking. Okay, it's very interesting. So, science has proved that your mind also is nothing but a machine. Many people are getting frightened about this because they have a delusion. They say, oh, artificial intelligence is going to finish mankind, all that. But the artificial intelligence has no access to information which is not already put into it. Okay? That's the interesting part. And certainly not anything to do with the soul or the self. So, this is the interesting part. And so, now, man has realized that this is dangerous. That is true, because your thinking can be very dangerous. But it will never go beyond that certain level. So, when science understands that the machine that I have invented is similar to the mind, then they are making the mistake of thinking that the mind is free. And so the machine that I have created, which replicates or duplicates the mind, is also a thinking capacity. That is absolutely false. So rather than thinking the other way around, if science comes to the view that the mind is really a machine, he will be much, much nearer to the spiritual truth. The mind is a machine with 10% or even less perhaps of freedom. And I gave you examples of the freedom. I am thirsty, yet I will not drink. I will not be slave to nature. So that's a freedom that you have. But it absolutely have no importance at all, your freedom. Okay? So,
Ranga,
yes, tell me.
Even that thought that I will not drink even though I am thirsty, that
Yes.
may also be nature which is working through you.
That's
It may
right.
not be your soul which is saying it, or
That is the answer given normally. But Srimdo used a very interesting phrase. That's why I'm saying, you read the next one. At any rate, at least 9/10 of our freedom of will is a palpable fiction. So he's leaving out 10%. Okay? So that is why I'm saying that there is that apparent freedom is there. And that apparent freedom is very important. Srimdo says in synthesis. He says that apparent freedom is the one that makes you progress. Okay? Because if that apparent freedom also is not there, then you can never progress. You will be exactly what nature is doing, a total slave. But that fiction also, the fiction that you are free, is also helpful. Okay? It has got a value. That's why I said that. Okay? So, it's very interesting how development of science is itself come to this. So I proceed with the text. The buddhi or conscious intelligent will is still an instrument of nature, and when it acts, even in the most sattvic sense, it is still nature which acts and the soul which is carried on by the wheel of Maya. Now, by the way, a little more aside about this artificial intelligence. I don't know if any of you have experimented, but many of us students also have experimented, and I also have experimented. Okay, Chat GTP is the machine on which your artificial intelligence is reached its peak. So, I told Chat GTP once, give me a poem very similar to Sri Aurobido's sonnets. Within 1 second, it produced it. Okay? It is not Sri Aurobido's text, but absolutely based on his ideas. So, how fantastic is this chat GTP you can imagine. Now, man does not need to make conscious decisions about business, about what to do in a situation. The machine does it for you. Because you are still at level 1. Okay. Level 1 is body, mind, life. Okay. So, this is what Sadhguru is saying here. Even the buddhi is part of nature. Level 2 is the spiritual planes of consciousness where there is real freedom. Okay. Your soul comes out and it is not bound in the prison of body, mind, life, and therefore you are free. You will feel yourself to be free. I am not located anywhere. I can be anywhere I want. I am vast. I have always existed and I will always exist in the future. You realize your own immortality. Who is the you? Your soul consciousness, not the body, mind, life. Okay? So that is real freedom. But level 2, freedom is there. But you are only a witness. I am free, but I don't have the power to do anything. As you keep rising in the level 2, from higher mind to element mind to intuitive mind and to our mind, power starts slowly increasing. You can change your mind, you can change your vital, but you cannot really change the problems of the body. You will still be subject to disease and you will definitely be subject to death. There is no freedom there. But in the third level, that freedom also will come for the body. Okay? So that's the interesting part. Okay? So the supramental body will not be necessary, it will not have birth. It can create itself. Swayambhu. It can create itself. And it can also dissolve its own body by will. My work in the physical world is over and I can come back when I need to do something else and I'll come back with a new body. So I dissolve this body. It is you, your consciousness which can do that. That's the supramental range. That is level 3. Okay. So when you remember this level 1, level 2, level 3, it becomes very easy to understand things. Okay. I proceed now with the next sentence which I use for my argument. At any rate, at least 9/10 of our freedom of will is a palpable fiction. So Srimbu agrees that largely it is true. Not absolutely true, it is absolutely true at the plant level, at the matter level, plant level and animal level. But at the human being level, even at the animal level, maybe 1% of freedom is there. Okay? And at the mental level, well, Srimbu is using 9/10, so we can say 10%. Okay? Right. So, that is the freedom that is there, which is very helpful for yoga. Okay, so, at any rate, at least 9/10 of our freedom of will is a palpable fiction. That will is created and determined not by its own self-existent action at a given moment, but by our past, our heredity, our training, our environment, the whole tremendous complex thing we call karma, which is behind us, the whole past action of nature on us and the world, converging on the individual, determining what he is, determining what his will shall be at a given moment and determining, as far as analysis can see, even its action at that moment. So, very interesting, you can see the determinism in the body. You eat something that does not agree with you, there will be results. You will get a loose stomach. It's a bound to be. And that will happen every time. I used to do something very interesting. There was a cat at home. Okay? And one day, when I was tickling it under the foot, okay, it started having a very, very peculiar reaction. It started jerking its leg like that. So I said, oh, if I do that, it is jerking its leg. Let me see whether it does that every time. So I started again doing, and every time I did that, it used to react. So absolute determinism. Okay, you cause something and there is a result, and the result is the same. This is exactly what happens in nature also. You see, no? It is so fixed that, as I said, we can even forecast sunrise tomorrow, day after tomorrow, 100 years from now, we can forecast a sunrise, forecast an eclipse, forecast the returning of Halley's comet. We can do all these things because there is fixity and rigidity. The laws of physics are absolutely bound. The laws of life are not so bound. They are more flexible, more free. And the laws of mind are even more flexible. That is why the 10% of freedom, we can say, is there. But largely a fiction. When you go to level 2, then the real freedom comes. Because your soul is not now fixed in the body-mind life. You are conscious that you see the body-mind life as something other than yourself. Okay? You will see, as Srimdu says in the synthesis, you will see it as an instrument in your hand. Now when you have a hammer in your hand, you don't think the hammer is me. But the body-mind life is nothing but a hammer, and yet you think that the hammer is me. Okay? So that's the interesting part. Alright? So, I go to the next sentence. As far as analysts can see, even its action is that mode. The ego associates itself always with its karma, and it says, I did, and I will, and I suffer. But if it looks at itself and sees how it is made, how it was made, it is obliged to say of man, as of the animal, nature did this in me, nature wills in me. And if it qualifies by saying, my nature, that only means nature as self-determined in this individual creature. Now, all this is very interesting because he's saying if it looks at itself. Can we really look at ourselves? This look should be in bold letters. When can we look at ourselves? 90% of the time, humanity does not look at itself. It's only the sattvic man who is aware of his own defects and his own qualities. Okay? Then he is looking at himself. But so long as you are in the mind, you can never look at yourself fully. You can never observe yourself fully. You will definitely cheat. You will think, I am this, I am that, I am this. I remember one very interesting case in our knowledge. There was one student who was palpably and demonstrably most stupid. Okay? So, and one day I asked him, what do you think of yourself? In a very nice, friendly manner I asked him. And his reply was, you know what? I am very intelligent. So, the capacity to look at oneself is not there usually. Even when you think you are honest with yourself, you are really not. The real look, and that's why they use the word witness, comes only when you are at level 2, outside your body. Okay? So, all this is so interesting, and that's why Srivastava should have put the word look at itself in bold letters. It's not the ordinary look, it's the look of the witness self. When you are absolutely detached from yourself and you can see things. Okay? Nature is in me, nature is in me. Now, it was a strong perception of this aspect of existence which compelled the Buddhists to declare that all is karma and that there is no self in existence. That the idea of self is only a delusion of the ego mind. Because ego is there when you are identified with your body-mind life. And that is necessary. We'll discuss that also. But when you go to the self, level 2, ego has disappeared. So if ego has disappeared, okay, then you are free. So ego and memory and circumstances and your past determine you in exactly what you are. It's the past that always determines the present and to a certain extent the future. The future is determined always by the past and the present. But the present is determined by the past only. When the ego thinks, I choose and will this virtuous and not that evil action, it is simply associating itself somewhat like a fly on the wheel, or rather as might a cog or other part of a mechanism, if it were conscious, with a predominant wave or a formed current of the sattvic principle by which nature chooses through the buddhi one type of action in preference to another. Now, what Sridhar is saying is very interesting. What I was talking about thirst and not drinking and drinking, you can apply what Sridhar is saying absolutely to that. Okay? So, a predominant wave or a formed current of sattvic principle by which nature chooses through the buddhi one type of action. Either I drink water or I don't drink water. Okay? In preference to another. So, the example I gave is perfectly illustrative of what he's saying here in this sentence. Nature is choosing. Even when you think that I am deciding not to have water, it is nature which is doing that in you. Okay? So that's what Pallavi said, and that's absolutely correct. Okay? But as I said, even that illusion is a help in yoga. Okay? Finally, we say, nature forms itself in us and wills in us. The Sankhya would say, for the pleasure of the inactive observing Purusha. So the Sankhya says, Purusha and Prakriti are always two independent principles, and their creation is created by their combination. Okay? So, very interesting this discussion in this para. Okay? So, you can see the developments, very interesting. Now we have enough time. We can read the next para. But even if this extreme statement. So, who will read? If Yasmin has the text, you can read.
Sorry, I don't have the text.
Okay, in that case, Seema, you have the text with you.
Yes, Dada.
You have? Then you read.
Yes, Dada.
Go ahead. But
even if this extreme statement has to be qualified, and we shall see hereafter in what sense, still the freedom of our individual will, if we choose to give it that name, is very relative and almost infinitesimal. So much is it mixed up with other determining elements. Its strongest power does not amount to mastery. It cannot be relied upon to resist the strong wave of circumstance or of other nature which either overbears or modifies or mixes up with it, or at the best subtly deceives and circumvents it. Even the most sattvic will is so overborne or mixed up with or circumvented by the rajasic and tamasic gunas as to be only in part sattvic, and then arises that sufficiently strong element of self-deception of a quite involuntary and even innocent make-believe and hiding from oneself, which the merciless eye of the psychologist detects even in the best human action. When we think that we are acting quite freely, powers are concealed behind our action which escape the most careful self-introspection. When we think that we are free from ego, the ego is there, concealed in the mind of the saint as in that of the sinner. When our eyes are really opened on our action and its springs, we are obliged to say with the Gita, Guna Gunesu Vartante. It was the modes of nature that were acting upon the modes.
yeah. So, this is further explanation, and again Swamdar is speaking about that small bit of freedom that you have in the sattvic nature, not in the vital nature and nor in the body nature. Okay, so that is why I was speaking about that. Swamdar has hinted that many times. Okay? Because if that freedom is not there in the mind, even 1 millimeter, how will yoga be possible? So that's exactly why that, but largely it is false. That's what is being said here in this paragraph. So let's read it, we'll finish it today. But even if this extreme statement has to be qualified. So, what is he saying? He's saying the extreme statement is what? 100% no freedom at all in body-mind life. That's the extreme statement, which Sri though does not fully agree with. Okay, so he says no, it has to be qualified. Okay, and we shall see hereafter in what sense. So that's exactly what I said in the synthesis, in the sense that even that element of falsehood in you, the thinking that I am completely free, even that is useful, because from falsehood you can go to a truth. Okay, it is that which makes you make an effort. If you know and you really are not free, you will not even make an effort. It is nature which is acting in you. Okay? So sattvic nature is a big leap. It's a big jump over the vital nature and an even bigger jump from the physical nature. But it is still slavery. That's what slavery is saying. Okay? But even if this extreme statement has been qualified, and we shall see hereafter in what sense, still the freedom of our individual will, if we choose it, if we choose to give it that name, the name of freedom, is very relative and almost infinitesimal. So here he is using the word infinitesimal, and the other place is 1/10. Okay, so infinitesimal is even smaller than that. Okay, so much is it mixed up with other determining elements. As I said, the body elements are there, the vital elements are there, desire is there, your past life is there, your environment is there. Note interestingly that even your environment determines you. Okay, if you are average man in a society, 90% you are sure to just mouth the opinions of the majority. You will agree with everybody else. But if you are a real independent thinker, you will say, no, this is wrong. Okay. So that's will. The more intelligent you are and the more sattvic you are, there is that infinitesimal freedom is being operated in you. You are operating that freedom. But 90%, we all want to go with the mass, the crowd. But in French is a very interesting word, mouton de panurge, okay, like sheep. And sheep is very interesting, okay. It's very, very interesting. They follow only the leader. I was watching a video the other day and I was wondering, how is it that you can easily put the sheep or even the cows, when you let them out to graze, how do you manage to bring them all into one? Because there is that one principle, they follow the leader. So even dogs can manage to do that work. Okay? For shepherds, they do that. The dog goes and forces everybody to follow the leader. And the leader, you can force him to go into the pen, okay, the enclosed area, and all the others follow. So that's exactly what man also does 90% of the time. Whatever everybody is saying, you agree with them. Okay? So this is what Sandhu is saying, determining elements. It gets mixed up with determining elements. Its strongest power does not amount to mastery. It cannot be relied upon to resist the strong wave of circumstances or of other nature which either overbears or modifies or mixes up with it, or at the best, subtly deceives and circumvents it. Even when you think you are free, you are not free. Even the most sattvic will is so overborne or mixed up with or circumvented by the rajasic and tamasic gunas as to be only in part sattvic. Now he is using the word only in part. So he has used 3 words. 10%, then infinitesimal, and now he is saying only part. So whatever it is, I suppose the variation depends upon the amount of sattva you have in you. The more sattva you have in you, the more relative freedom you have. Okay, so that's why there is variation. 3 variations here. 10%, infinitesimal, and part sattva. Okay. And then arises that sufficiently strong element of self-deception. The vital can deceive you. of a quite involuntary and even innocent make-believe. I give you the example of that stupid fellow who said, I am very intelligent. Okay, so it's innocent. It's not intentional, it is innocent. Okay, he really thinks he is intelligent. Make-believe and hiding from oneself, which the merciless eye of the psychologist detects, even in the best human action. If you have merciless eye, the witness, you can see very clearly. When we think that we are acting quite freely, powers are concealed behind our action, which escape the most careful self-introspection. When we think that we are free from ego, the ego is there, concealed in the mind of the saint as in that of the sinner. When our eyes are really open on our action and its springs, they are obliged to say with the Gita, Guna Guneshu Vartante. In other words, the three modes of nature, Sattva, Rajas, Tamas, are playing among themselves and creating waves at their own level, not anywhere else. Guna Guneshu Vartante. It was the modes of nature that were acting upon the modes. That's all. So, very interesting what he is saying here. And we have 23 minutes left. So if there are any questions or any thoughts that enter your mind, we can discuss that. Otherwise, next time we'll finish this chapter, the determinism of nature. So remember one thing, there is no real freedom when you are identified with your body-mind. Okay? So you should be also very careful about your own opinions. Okay? You must not force your opinions on others, knowing fully well that they are only partly true. And they may not even be true. Okay? So it gives you a certain wide-mindedness. Even when you think of these things, it makes you realize that you are nothing at all. You are just a small, infinitesimal dot in the universe. That you are really nothing at all. Okay? Now that's very interesting because one of my students, okay, and that student was a very interesting student, many small experiences. So one day, she told me that I was floating in the sea. And as I was floating in the sea, I looked up at the sky. And I realized that I am really nothing in this universe. And still we have an ego. We think that we are everything. So, it is very interesting. A small child like that, okay, 18, 19-year-old, realizing that you are really nothing at all in the universe. It's quite an experience. It makes you humble. Of course, it is a momentary thing. Next moment again, the ego insists on its own nature. Okay? So, we stop here today. I hope you found the whole discussion interesting, and I myself found it very interesting. Okay, so. Okay, we stop here today. Au revoir.
Au revoir, Ranga. Bonne journée.
Merci beaucoup. Merci.
Okay,
Thank you, Dada. Au revoir.
bye.